feel like someone is controlling you and you can't do anything. You are just waiting the next attack.
One time my husband broken my hand and beat me again.
Every time he hit me, he would put his hand on my throat and press my throat really hard, and he would make threats, I'll kill you.
Women have always been vulnerable, especially when it comes to a lot of things that are yet to be discussed openly and integrately among international bodies and even among countries. Women still suffer a lot of abuse. Girl child abuse do not just cut off when we are girl children. It comes out with us into adolescent, into adulthood, and finally ends up in most of our marriage homes, not to talk about our occupational places and where we find ourselves even later in life. One of these such abuses that have not been spoken of, and it keeps rising, is migrant abuse. Being still in the historic Women Month, I take a glance at how women are doing with regards to migration and how well we tend to flourish when we go out of our maiden homes to seek greener pastures. Interestingly, one of the things that have curtailed us from actually raging on whatever we go to pursue out there as women has been things that is yet to be explored. In as much as that the International Organization of Migration tends to address most of these things, migrant women abuse is still yet a topic not fully explored. This is Lit the Catalyst, and today I am extremely not happy, but yes, I have to share with you viewers on what I found on women in migration, their abuse, the figures, the causes, and the reasons why people do not speak up. If you are watching this video and you find yourself in any of the things we're going to discuss today, do not hesitate to speak up. Hello lovely people, my name is Lit and this is The Catalyst. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for the audience you guys have been giving me on this channel, and I am so grateful for the fact that you always tend to click to have a watch. Stay tuned as we explore migrant women in abuse. Hi viewers, welcome back. So the vulnerability of women actually transcends borders of countries. It goes beyond international boundaries and tends to migrate with us as we move from one country to the other. So apparently women who actually think that there is not enough being done in their homes for them and would like to move to other countries to explore the options available for them do end up mysteriously in some form of abuse in the hands of the people they fall victim. Today, I want us to read one section of some documents and see how this thing keeps rising, and the fact that if we are celebrating women in a month like this, we need to pay attention to abuse. All forms of abuse, but especially abuse that are meted out to women who are migrants. So I have a document here I'd like to read to you hearing, especially based on why women tend to suffer a lot of abuse when it comes to migration. You know, the place that any woman wants to be is where she truly chooses to be. And so where women chooses to be should not be a factor for them to get abused and whatever they want to find themselves doing. So this was, let me say, posted on the November 16th, 2023 by the University of Bristol, and it's a comment and analysis from the School of Policy Studies, and it covers women and migration. I'd like to read a section to you to know what the statistics actually says and what gender-based violence against women, especially in migration, looks like. So the introduction says it all. It says gender plays a crucial role in shaping individuals' experience of migration. From the reasons why women migrate to the challenges they face during and after migration. Despite this, gender is often overlooked in migration discourse, which is very important, with violence against women and girls often dismissed as an issue of the private sphere. While acknowledging the reason which pushes women to migrate, it's also important to recognize the agency of migrant women and challenge narratives of forced and voluntary migration. Even though most of us tend to migrate on will, most other ladies are forced to migrate against their will. Most other girls, teenagers, adolescents are forced to migrate against their will. And we should not overlook the consequences that these things come along with, especially when it has to be with a female gender. I'm just reading on the migration as a gender issue. So, gender is key, organizing principle of society and migration. Women migrate for varied reasons, but often choose to leave country due to gender-based violence or persecutions. A section of it says, for instance, 27% of migrant women who left Afghanistan cited domestic violence as the main reason for migrating. So just as I said, these things start from home. It does not stay within the borders, transcend. So I am leaving and running away because I am domestically abused. And then see what happens. But violence against women and girls perpetrated by a partner or family member is often relegated to the private sphere and thus overlooked in forced migration discourse. Another paragraph reads, a person who owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular group of political opinion. Now, while there are some debates including gender, most cases of gender-based violence are considered on the basis of women, particularly because we are the most vulnerable and the figures have shown that we are more abused when it comes to these two genders that we have. An estimated 74% of migrant domestic workers are women, which means for many women, their place of work is their place of residence, which can create an equal power dynamics and leave women vulnerable to labor exploitation, particularly since 40% of national labor laws do not include protection of domestic workers. It is important to recognize the agency of migrant women, with an estimated 90% of women and girls migrating along the Mediterranean route raped en route to Italy. So it goes beyond even what I was thinking and envisaging. So this domestic violence and gender-based violence against women stems from home, is experienced en route to our destinations, and we get to face it when we get to our destinations. So thinking about all the figures rising up, it gives you a clear picture that psychologically, emotionally, most women tend to face the abuse which are unspoken of. Women are not given the mouth to speak more in most part of the world. And so growing up, they tend to have this second image of themselves where they tend to swallow everything up in and do not stand to speak for themselves. So if such an individual who is trying to run away from home and get to a safer place is running because there is a gender-based violence that is happening at home, and then tends to find herself en route facing the same problem, and then ends up in a domestic job where she finds herself in the same shoes, that is a triple damage. Self damage, image damage, psychological damage that is inflicted on these individuals who go through such a lot. See, it's Women Month. There are some issues people have stopped talking about, the media has silenced up on, the institutions have kept quiet on. I always say there are some things being done, but it's still not enough because certain things are still ongoing, and the earlier we seek to redress and address these cases, the better. Now, one thing I want us to consider is why is this? Why is there the vulnerability? Why is gender-based violence always tilted to the female side and not a balance in all both sexes? Now, this is something I'm going to read, and it comes from a vulnerability of migrant women during disasters, a scoping review of the literature. So, this is just giving highlights on how vulnerable women are and what puts them at risk. So, it says that for women, vulnerability arises from the systematic difference in power relation to social hierarchy. That means that even the differences in social hierarchy, it's an automated exit for us to find ourselves wherever that we find ourselves. One major thing. The second other thing is that most of these things are not spoken up by women. Women who go through these violences do not speak up. They do not say a word. Now, I went through some researchers that say that most women who go through these violences tend to confide in their other colleagues or employees who tend to be silent on most things. And even though things are evolving, times are changing, these things are still not being elevated out of the system enough. Funny enough, we don't speak up because we feel like naturally, we have been nursed in that environment where we think abuse is normal and so I should not voice out about it. We are nursed in the environment where we feel like the male gender has got the power over us and so we should give them all the reverence they need, forgetting that we also need to exist and fight for a place in that environment. Gender-based violence itself has been a whole issue on various platforms being discussed. However, on the migrant level, it's a different ballgame together. See, we cannot dispute the fact that most people who are fortunate and are able to make it after migrating from wherever they were are able to just get higher incomes, get themselves the self esteem, the futures they want, see the opportunities to become who they want to be. But if we do not find it going as planned, then that is where the question is. For some time now, people have been trying to migrating not because they even know what they want to go and do on the other side, and then they are being pushed out of their home countries because of the situations that are in existence there. The truth untold is it is not all rosy on the other side. But if you are coming on the basis of education, you are going on the basis of work, skilled worker levels, or anything, then sure it is a good way to migrate. But if you are migrating not knowing where you're going to, what you're going to do, and even what the future holds in store for you, then that is where the problem comes in. See, my ladies, it is good to pay these huge sums of money to these agencies and all that just to come over. But the realities on the ground is most people tend to find their rights curtailed when they come over. Most people tend to have themselves pressed up in domestic jobs that end up sexual roles as part of these domestic jobs that they do. And it's quite frustrating, it's quite unbearable for most women. And the most painful thing of all is that they do not speak up. Let's look at what the International Organization of Migration is actually doing about this whole thing. Migration does not cause gender based violence. However, during their journey, some migrants face situations where they are more vulnerable to violence. Numerous factors influence a person's risk and vulnerabilities throughout their migration journey. Alongside gender, a key factor is whether the migration route is safe or regular. If you don't know the safe route you're embarking on, and if you don't even know what this route entails, what it captures, what it offers you, explore more. Do not fall victims of these agencies who their self-seeking interests lead them on to take huge sums of money from migrants who are desperate and are in desperation to just leave their home countries. If you don't know whether the route is safe or regular, do not use it. Now, reading on, it says, unsafe or irregular migration routes increase the risk of gender based violence, including human trafficking. Migrant women, girls, and LGBTQI individuals are disproportionately targeted by human traffickers. According to the 2019 Trafficking in Person report, traffickers in the Caribbean target migrant women, particularly from Jamaica, Guyana, and the Dominican Republic. In the Costa Rica, LGBTQI persons, particularly transgender Costa Rican, are vulnerable to sex traffickers, women and girls from Nicaragua. The Dominican Republic and other Latin American countries have been identified in Costa Rica as victims of sexual trafficking and domestic servitude. At their destination, and for those who return to their country of origin, other intersecting factors including a migrant financial insecurity, awareness of their legal rights, and language inability influence their vulnerability to gender-based violence as women. This is what I tell my beautiful ladies. We are still in the month of women. If you want to migrate, do it right. Find the best route. Find your destination. Explore your options. Get to know the better choice. Yes, information, there are a lot of information out there, but not all of them are authentic. You need to find for yourself the best route and the safe method to get you there. We need you. The life is precious. We cannot afford to still have you go under gender based violence as you migrate. So, guys, the International Organization of Migration is actually doing a lot to curtail all these things, but then there is more for us to do as international organizations, calling on the UN, calling on the International Organization of Migration, calling on the Global Compact on Migration, calling on a lot of agencies, the labor laws and the labor forces we have in most countries to still mass up and speak about this gender based violence against women migrants, because it is something we truly need to fight and make sure that it ends. As we celebrate women, I just want you to know that do not make the hasty decision of moving without having a plan. Do not make the hasty decision of paying huge sums to people without knowing where you're going. And do not make the hasty decision to run away from home and only find yourself in much more trouble and in the hands of perpetrators who are just waiting for you to fall a victim. Until I meet you again, guys, remember that we're still celebrating women. Help your children, your girl child, your girlfriends, your wife, partners. Just encourage them to be the woman that they wish to be.